Jessie here. Welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome. I hope you are having a wonderful day. I just got done filming my expense tracking video, which you would have seen yesterday. If you missed it, make sure you check it out. I will link it in a card above if I remember. I'm really bad at remembering. Editing Jessie, make sure you remember to link that video. I thought that I was going to do my expense tracking and my budget check-in all in one video, but I talked too much during the expense tracking portion of the video and it got too long, so I had to cut it in half. I've done the expense tracking. I've got my expense tracker here. It's going to make it super easy to fill in my hybrid budget here. We're just going to check in with any bills that got paid, and then we're going to use this weekly section here to check in with my variable spending. So I'm hoping that unlike the last video, this one's going to be pretty darn short. Got all the information I need right here. We're just going to essentially transfer it from one page to another. Starting with the bills. So we only had one bill come out during this first week of my June budget. The week we're tracking for, by the way, is May 28th through June 3rd. So usually the first week of the month is the week that I have the most bills, but just because of the way the dates fell, I just had the one. I went ahead and started my June budget a few days early at the end of May, just so that I knew that everything would be covered. You guys know, if you've been watching my YouTube videos for any length of time, that I do a monthly budget, but I also kind of budget by week, hence it's sort of a hybrid system. And I always like to start our budgeting week on Tuesday, since that's when my husband and I are both paid. So in order to make sure the bills in the first couple of days of June were covered, I had to start my June budget on the last Tuesday of May. So that's the week we're looking at here. We had just one bill. It was our storage unit. I budgeted $100 for storage. I always tend to budget a little bit higher than what I think it's going to be because I get a built-in buffer that way. The amount that it actually came out as was $92.70. Typically, by the way, our lot rent would be paid on the first of the month as well. They had some sort of glitch in their system. It's like an online system that you go on and pay, and our information just poof, disappeared. It wasn't in there. There was no place for me to go and click pay. So we had to go back and forth with tech support for a couple of days while we tried to figure out what was going on. It's still not figured out, actually. So I ended up just writing them a paper check. That'll be next week. You'll see that next week because it took so long to do the tech support thing that I didn't end up paying our lot rent until like the 5th. So you'll see that next week. And I'm over-explaining things again. My apologies. All right, so that's it for bills. Let's go ahead and talk about our variable categories. So the categories that I count as variable are grocery, eating out, we have spending, what else? Oh, auto pay, and this month we have Sam's Club. Even though I don't expect that we're going to go to Sam's Club more than once this month, I am going to include it in my weekly category just in case we go more than once. Or sometimes I order stuff online and then I also go in store. So we're going to keep track of this week to week, even though it's likely just going to be a transaction that happens one time. Auto pay. Almost forgot auto pay. All right. So the way that this works is for my bills and stuff that happen just one time in the month, I can just easily look at the amount I spent and write it in the actual column. But for these variable categories, these are categories that I'm spending from more than just one time in the month. So I need to kind of keep a running tally of how much I've spent in that category each week. I like to check in with it weekly so that I can make sure that I'm staying on track It's really, really easy at the beginning of the month, especially to overspend in these categories, because I know I have like my full budget, right? Like I have $1,200 for groceries. So it's a lot easier to go over and spend more than I should at the beginning of the month than it is at the end of the month when, say, I only have $200 left. If I just waited till the end of the month to check in, most likely I would be over budget month after month after month. This just helps me to stay on track by checking in every week. So for groceries, I started out with a $1,200 budget for the month of June. I did film a whole video on my June monthly budget, so that's already up, actually. Go ahead and go check that video out. If you missed it, I will link that one above and in the description box below as well. Editing Jessie, make sure you do that. Little note to self there. So, $1,200 for groceries. In the first week of the month, I spent $206.97. So I like to take a look each week at how much I spent, and then I also like to see what's remaining for the month. So if I take the $1,200 we started with, I subtract the $206.97 that I spent this week, we've got $993.03 remaining. And if we divide that by, got 3 weeks left in June, I think. Let me just take a look at my calendar and make sure this isn't one of those 5-week months. So my June budget started here. So we've got week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. So my July budget's technically going to start on June 25th, which seems early. I could make this a 5th month in June and then start my July budget on, what would that be, July 2nd? Oh, I am going to do that, I think. That just makes more sense. Sometimes I like to start the month at the end of the previous month just so that those days are covered. Like in June, the first Tuesday of the month wasn't until the 4th, so it just made sense to have these first 3 days. It just didn't make sense to not start my June budget until the 4th, because then these first 3 days, I don't know, sometimes I do it one way, sometimes I do it the other way. This time I think it makes the most sense to start my July budget on July 2nd, which means I've got 5 weeks to get through on this budget, and I don't think I realized that when I set up my budget, or I probably would have budgeted a little bit higher, but that's okay. We're gonna make it work. $993.03, still have 4 weeks left, so that means we've got $248.25 a week if I want to stick to my budget. So like if I spend more than that, $248 in week 2, for example, that's fine. I'll just have to spend less the subsequent weeks. I just like to get a feel for overall how much money I can spend about each week. So $248 is great. I should be able to stick to that. Although we are moving into summer vacation here real soon, and I will have my 16-year-old son home and eating more at home. So it might be more difficult. We'll see. I'll just have to be mindful. All right, I'm rambling. Eating out. This week I spent $93.46. For our eating out budget, we started with $400. So if I subtract that $93.46, that leaves us with $306.54. It's very hard to write against these discs here, so I'm just gonna go ahead and pull this guy out and write directly on the table. That's gonna make it so much easier. It's one of the reasons I love a disc-bound system. I can pull the pages out, I can rearrange them, easy peasy. So at $306.54, we still have 4 weeks left. Means we can only spend $76.63 a week. This week, obviously, we spent $93.46. So I'm gonna have to spend less in subsequent weeks than I did this week if I'm gonna stick to my budget. Like I said, if I had realized this was gonna be a 5-week month, I may have raised this eating out budget. But it's too late now, so I'm just gonna try to make it work. For spending, started out with $500. This week we spent $76.09. That means we've got $423.91 remaining. If we divide that by the 4 weeks left, we got about $105 a week in spending. That should be fine. For Sam's Club, we actually didn't spend anything this week. We didn't get to Sam's Club. I don't know that we're gonna get to Sam's Club next week either, so we still have the full $300 for Sam's Club. Maybe I shouldn't have listed this as something to check in with weekly, but whatever, it's fine. So we still have the full $300, and then for auto pay, we started out with a $300 budget. I spent $92.67. Auto pay doesn't really work the same way as these other variable categories in that the things that come out of our account automatically that make up this auto pay category aren't dispersed evenly throughout the month. So I don't really need to get a total per week to see how much we can spend each week. I just need to get overall a feel for how much we have remaining, which is $207.33. If I manage to screw up my calculating and any of these numbers seem off to you, please tell me. As a matter of fact, that reminds me, somebody told me that my math here was wrong. So luckily, I believe when I wrote this budget, I used erasable pen. Did I? I did. Okay, so 5625 is the number I got, and she's like, nope, I think that's wrong. So I'm gonna add up these budgeted amounts again, just to make sure I am certain that that viewer is right, because I make mistakes like that on my budget all the time. Yep, look at that, $59.25. Here I was thinking I had spent less this month, or I had budgeted less this month than usual. And nope, I just calculated it wrong. So, thank you to the viewer who pointed that out to me. Please, if you ever see me make a mistake, do not hesitate to tell me, because I always appreciate that. A lot of times I'll get to the end of a month and I'll be calculating everything at the end of the month, and the amount that is in my bank account won't match the amount that's on my budget. And I'm like, what the heck? What did I do? But that happens less often when I film my budgets, and you guys can point out my mistakes. So that's fixed. Let's go ahead and add these up now and make sure that these are accurate. So 206.97 plus 93.46 plus 76.09 plus 92.67. for a total of $469.19 in variable spending. That is what's on my little page here. That means, unless I got the math wrong twice, which is possible, this is accurate. So $469.19 is how much I spent overall in these variable categories. I like to get a feel for the total, because I don't get too bad out of shape if I go over budget in one category, but I'm under in another category. And it all evens out. So I spent $469.19 total in variable this month, or this week. And then I have remaining $22.30.81. And if we divide that by 4 weeks, I can spend about $557.70 in total in variable the next 4 weeks and still be under budget, which is more than what I spent this week. So that bodes well for our budget. So that is my budget check-in. I'm just gonna get these worksheets back in here. My expense tracker goes right here. By the way, if you are liking what you're seeing with these budget worksheets and you're like, hey, I want to do my budget on those pretty worksheets too, you can get them by joining my channel membership or by purchasing them on Etsy. So we'll have those links down below for you to check out if you're interested. They're printables. You can print them yourself at home as many times as you'd like. Punch them, put them in your own little binder, and make your own little budget planner. These are the designs for June. I have other patterns and designs as well, lots of them. So yeah, check that out. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. That really helps out my channel, and I will see you next time. Bye, friends.